Welcome in. Good to see everybody again. It's a Tuesday night live stream on the On Texas Football channel. He is Rod Babers. He is CJ Vogel. I am Aaron Hogan, and we're with you, brought to you by Texas Electricity Ratings. And we're excited to talk some college football. There's a lot happening. I know it's kind of a slower time in college football, but not really. There's a lot happening. Longhorns are wrapping up their off month of May. They're about ready to roll back in for Memorial Day. We've got some CJ Vogel reports of who's coming in the next month. Also, the newcomers, the non-early enrollees for the freshman class, plus the transfer portal guys who have shown up. They're going to be in Texas Longhorns in 2024 and beyond. Also, there's major lawsuits happening all over college football. Could be a big settlement coming as far as the NCAA situation. There's a lot happening as far as the big picture, the macro view of college football. There's now a lawsuit involving the University of Florida that we'll get to coming up. Also, Bill Connelly is out with his S&P Plus ratings, where the Longhorns rank big picture according to the ESPN prognosticator and number cruncher. It'll be a good conversation tonight. We appreciate you being there. An hour plus of Texas football conversation on the On Texas Football channel. So if you have super chats and chat questions you want to ask about what's on top of your mind, we'll certainly answer them as we move forward. So hit us up. Matthew's back at the home headquarters and ready to roll. Rod and CJ are ready to answer the questions, and we'll make this thing happen. Guys, how are we? Ready to roll? I mean, running into Memorial Day, which, gosh, Sark has said, Sark down at the Touchdown Club of Houston guys said, when they get back from the Memorial Day holiday and hit the ground running, it's full bore until January 20th. They want to be playing for a national championship. Everything comes back. Everybody seems to have had football camps. A bunch of the players have football camps and get some downtime, get some family time, all that kind of stuff. But it's serious business come about 1 week from today.
Yeah. I mean, we know recruiting never ends, right? CJ can talk to you about that. Recruiting is the lifeblood of a program. So whether you're talking about the talent acquisition cycle of kind of traditional recruiting or the new transfer portal, that's continuing. That's ongoing all the time. But you can tell, Sark now in terms of this team, he now the transfer I would say the talent acquisition for this particular team is pretty much done. In terms of future teams, you're working on that in terms of recruiting and transfer portal. But you know how this team is going to look, at least the personnel of it for the most part. This is the team because now you got some other guys. Silas Bolden is now on campus too, officially. So we know at least personnel-wise what this team is going to consist of. So now it's time to start figuring out what roles these guys are going to play, who are going to be the leaders on your team. That's what the offseason is all about. This is when, the coaches can't be as involved. There are new rules so they can be more involved. But this is when that player-led leadership starts to take over, guys. The guys who are organizing the workouts themselves, the guys who are organizing, film sessions that coaches got nothing to do with, the guys who are going that extra mile above and beyond. This is where it starts, and it's got to be habitual day to day. These young men are up to it because they talk about the culture of Texas football, and the culture of a team is just the soul of the team. And the soul of this team is about the everyday dedication and commitment to greatness. And Sark talks about how he's obsessed with winning a national title. Well, if you're obsessed with something, it's a day-to-day obsession. It's an hour-to-hour obsession. And I think that's kind of what nobody's going to be talking about them. Not a lot of reports. There's not a lot of headlines. Now we're done with that. I think the EA Sports video game might have been the last headline we get for Texas football before the season actually starts and before we get to training camp. So this is what Kobe Bryant, the Mamba, used to talk about. Ain't nobody watching you. All right. The headlines are done. This is you and what you do away from the limelight, away from the big stage. How dedicated are you to your craft? This is for a football player, man. This is a key time. These 3-4 months, you got to get better than everybody else around you. And this is, to me, I think for this team, going to be a crucial period, especially trying to identify who the leadership is going to be on the team. We know it's going to be Quinn. There are some guys automatically that are going to be leaders, the guys who came back. They could have a chance to go to league. Guys like Jadae Barron, those types of players. But there are some young guys. This is a really young team that are going to have to step up and take on those leadership roles as well, CJ.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting what you said. This is your group of guys. Your season starts June 1st when everybody is back on campus. Of course, you go through spring practice, and nowadays spring practice is basically just a revolving door of who's going to be on your roster, who's walking in from the portal, who's going out via the portal. You don't know necessarily what your position group might look like going into the fall with those departures or arrivals. Well, the minute that you show up that first week of June and you get ready for summer conditioning and then move into fall camp, you know who's going to be by your side when you go to war every Saturday on the football field. And right now, again, that's kind of who your group is going to be. Silas Bolden just moved on to campus. Of course, a lot of these other guys will start returning to campus. A lot of these portal additions, Tia Savea, Bill Norton. We saw Tia in the spring. Bill Norton coming in as well in the next week. So it's going to be a busy time on campus over the next week or so. Of course, all these guys returning to campus and these coaches preparing for official visits, camps, everything that goes on in the summer that's not coaching. Of course, these guys don't really get any time off until July, and then anything after July, is just 100%, balls to the wall essentially. So it's exciting time. I'm really looking forward to seeing and hearing about how these guys return after their month away. To your point, Rod, I mean, you do your best work in the dark, right? And if you're, out there at home for the last month or so and not doing much, well, I think you're going to hear a little bit about it from us, from other reports whenever these guys get back to practice. And I think you're going to hopefully not see any cornerbacks balloon up about 12 or 15 pounds. And that would be quite a relief if so.
No, and the reason, guys, this time is so important because it literally because of the time. Like once school is in session and you got practice as well, and then everybody's back on campus and you're going to want to have a social circle too because you're an 18 to 22-year-old young man and you want to go have some fun in your experience. Guys, there's not enough time in the day to dedicate to your craft. So when you do have time, like when you don't have school and you do have a break, or when you got some time when you don't have all of those different obligations and it slows down, as a player, that's when you got to put the work in. Like to me, that's when you really can put in extra work, whether it be film, self-scouting, whether it be working on certain parts of your technique, whether it be getting stronger in the weight room, whether that be I got to get faster. That's when you really can dedicate and focus on it because you do have the extra time on your hands. Man, time is your enemy as a pro athlete. It always has been. You don't have enough time to get better at your craft. You get hurt. It takes away from your time. And, of course, Father Time is undefeated. So when you got extra time, man, you got to take advantage of it. You can't waste that.
Well, and Rod, take us. I mean, I know Sark did them just recently with his coaching staff. You were a part of it when you were playing the exit interview, right? I mean, that's where you were told. Sark has talked about being as candid as possible, being real honest with the players. That's why some guys jump in the portal and some guys feel secure. But that's when you know what to work on, right? That's when you've been kind of given your assignment. Here's what we got to see you improve. We've watched you grow into this. Here, you got to get stronger. You got to get better with your footwork. Got to get better with this technique, and that's what you're talking about, right? When it's in the dark on your own, working on those things. The coaches have asked you, hey, when we see you come back here in June and into fall camp, we need to see these improvements.
Yep, there's no doubt. And you're right, E. That's when you get your checklist from the coaches, and hopefully, when you get your checklist from the coaches, it matches your own checklist. As a player, you should be doing self-evaluation constantly. After every damn game, you should be like, damn, got to work on that. Thought I improved on that from week 2, but now it's week 8 and I'm still struggling with inside leverage. Or I'm still struggling with, letting the receiver stack me, whatever it may be. And you should have your own personal checklist. Got to get better at these things. And when you go in there and talk to coach, hell, man, you should beat him to the punch. All right, coach, I know I got to start working on getting better at staying on the upfield shoulder. That's one of the things I got to work on. Got to work on being better at breaking on those inside routes. I got to work on being more of a fearless football, whatever it may be. You should already have that self-evaluation as a player. I do think there is this group that he has now. I think there is that kind of dedication, that type of awareness as a player of, hey man, you gotta have your own self-scouting mechanism and know, okay, if I'm not seeing the field enough, why am I not seeing the field? You think you're the best? You think you're better than the starter? And then why are you not on the field? When you do that self-evaluation, okay, I'm not on the field because of I don't do this, this, and this. And is it because you're a young player, you're inexperienced, and because you're not strong enough, because you're not fast enough? You got to figure that out too. You should be doing that in practice every day. The guy is ahead of me. What's the guy ahead of me doing that I'm not doing? Does he stay out to practice longer? Is he a better student of the game? Like all those things. So if that's not happening, then we got a bigger issue. But I think that is happening. So when you go into that meeting with coach, you should already have your own checklist. And when he gives you it, you should make sure it matches yours and go, okay, that's exactly what I thought I need to work on. So coach sees me the same way I see myself.
Yeah. Well, and CJ, the momentum of the program, which I think is real, you just saw 11 guys drafted. You've seen what the message is being preached and the checklist, as Rod talks about it. If you check off the boxes and you do the work, you're going to see success as a Big 12 championship would show, a trip to the college football playoff, a lot of individual success and awards. And then, 11 guys into the National Football League. That's what all these guys are working towards. And that's the momentum of the program. You get it spinning like that. And everyone understands, okay, and there's more depth within the program, which means if I'm not doing it, I got to know the guy behind me or next to me is probably doing it, and I'm going to lose my spot. That's the health of a program right there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And we've talked about each chapter of the offseason and Texas coming away with victories in it, whether it be the combine, the draft, the spring game, even the video game release as well. It feels like Texas has been just checking off boxes the entire offseason so far. And that big box that we'll have to continue to check off, and that is, kind of next up, is what these guys and what that mentality is like when these guys return to campus. What we do know, however, is, hey, they know what it takes to get to the top. They've not yet accomplished that mountaintop, but they know what it takes to get there. And of course, being so close, I think this offseason, you've seen a little bit more drive out of the guys who are returning, who are expected to be leaders on this team. You talk about the David Bendas, Barron Sorrells, Anthony Hills, Jahdae Barron on the defensive side of the ball, Jake Major, some of these guys on the offense side of the ball, even Quinn. They know what it takes to come in, hitting the ground running and making sure that you're not wasting this summertime, because it is valuable. Getting in shape after being off after spring football, this is valuable, and you keep that momentum rolling, as you mentioned, into fall camp. You can come in ahead, and that's very important as you begin your SEC tenure in what will be a much tougher schedule than what we saw a year ago.
Hey, CJ, let me ask you. You mentioned Rod mentioned Silas Bolden. You said he moved in. I mean, that's a name. And who are the names that we're so familiar now with the 17 early enrollees and the transfer portal guys who showed up in January? But there's a group of a small group of freshmen that are rolling in, and there's a Bill Norton and a Silas Bolden that are coming in. I remember back to the year when Xavier Worthy showed up in the summer and wasn't here for the spring, and became the best receiver as a freshman. Are there some names you're watching as guys that we're not talking about now that can become conversations come August and into the football season?
Yeah, I think one right away is Michael Kern, who we actually had on the winning drive yesterday. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. That's the punter out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Of course, Texas has yet to add a portal punter so far this offseason, though we do expect that is a position where there's certainly room for them on the Texas roster at the moment. And of course, with Ryan Sanborn departing for the NFL and signing with the Atlanta Falcons, that is a valuable position that makes a difference every single game. Field position is a big part of the game, especially in the SEC. And right now, it sounds to me, Rod, having talked with Michael a little bit yesterday, it might not be out of the question that he is the guy. He mentioned wanting to come in and start right away. It's not an easy thing to do for freshman punters, but again, you only see about 5 or 6 punters in a national cycle end up as All-Americans. And then that's exactly what he was able to do down in San Antonio for the All-American Bowl. So if that's the way Texas feels, of course, they still will have time in June once he gets to campus to kind of evaluate things and maybe go grab a grad transfer or somebody looking to make the jump up to the big-time stage. We'll see. But right now, that's that number one guy. Nate Kibble's another one. I think he's going to be a little bit a ways away from seeing the field, and that's okay. I mean, true freshman interior offensive guards, you don't expect them to come in and be that guy right away. Cole Hudson, actually the last one to do it, had a hell of a freshman season. Has been dinged up since. So luckily Texas will be able to get him back. But Nate Kibble is a guy, really lengthy arms, plays with the mean streak, and can really, really go in the run game. I'm excited to see what he can do with his body once he gets into a college weight room down in Austin this summer.
All right, guys. Hey, real quick, CJ, as we were talking about what's to come, Memorial Day weekend and then into June 1, there's a big weekend, June 1st, right? Early June with big visitors. And as we've talked about here on the Tuesday live stream brought to you by Texas Electricity Ratings, that June month into early July has become the fertile recruiting ground for Sark and his staff. They like to get a lot of that, groundwork done ahead of the football season, before fall camp, before SEC Media Days will be July 15th and beyond. So there's a lot of work to be done here. And they want to start it early, it sounds like, as far as the story I read from you today with June 1st and all the folks that are rolling in here for 2025, 2026.
Yeah, of course. We've talked about it. And if you watch the recruiting breakdown, Jerry and I went through some of the big names coming in for the official visits. Of course, right now, Texas sitting right at 45. By my count, they could certainly add a couple more, get up to 50. Right now, a lot of out-of-state guys, 9 of them coming from California, which is noteworthy. Rod, we actually made this point earlier. 2 years ago in the 2023 cycle, Texas only had 3 official visitors from the state of California. Last year, they had 6. This year, they have 9. And we've talked about it. Some of those top-end guys, Josiah Sharman, I'm all about the efforts and recruiting done by Chris Jackson, Jeff Banks, Steve Sarkisian, and now Johnny Nansen, who has plenty of ties out in that area as well. That's going to be put to the test when these official visitors come to campus, of course, with those guys coming in more so in the back half, those June 14th through 16 weekend, and then the big one, the very last weekend of that window or open contact window, June 21st through 23rd. That's where you're going to see a lot of movement happen right now. Texas going to begin their summer recruiting momentum here in the next couple days even, with that high that Jerry put in a few days ago on Texas football, but more so moving towards the 26 and 27 classes and that June 1st elite camp. If you're not on Texas football right now, you're missing out on quite the visitors list that we were able to put up earlier this afternoon. Big names added. Kevin Ford, the defensive end out of Duncanville. He's on the list. Jamarian Carlton, defensive end, 6'5", out of Temple. I was able to see him a couple of weeks ago as well. Talented kid. Tredarian Bell, the running back out of Texarkana High, on campus June 1st. Of course, Racing Guillory. And the biggest storyline of them all, will Texas move with Diabell or will they proceed with Troy Hune? Those are your 2 quarterbacks coming to campus. We've seen historically under Steve Sarkisian, the future class, the next class up, begins with the quarterback commitment right around this time of the month of June. So we'll see what they end up doing. That June 1st elite camp is going to have a lot of big-time bodies coming in. 2 guys, 2 really talented wide receivers out of California, 2 really talented IMG Academy offensive linemen coming in as well. That's Brett Colleget, really talented kid that visited April 13th. So we'll see, but that's going to be a big, big weekend for the Longhorns in terms of what they do in future classes and to get that ball rolling early.
Any updates, CJ, on Dakarian Moore, the kid from Duncanville? I know he's going to take an Oregon visit. There's going to be an Ohio State visit and a Texas visit. Feeling, any sense of where this thing, the temperature of this deal right now?
Yeah, of course. It's going to be a Texas and an Oregon battle. By all accounts, by my eyes, I don't see him going to Ohio State. I talked to Devin Sanchez, the 5-star cornerback out of North Shore, committed to Ohio State. He said he's working on Dakarian the hardest at the moment. I just don't see that as a possible fit. I don't see LSU getting back into this one as well. There's no official visit set back to Baton Rouge, which is certainly interesting after having been committed for the last 7 or 8 months. But right now, to me, it's all Texas. It's looking really good for Texas at the moment. Will there be a decision soon? I don't think so. I think you're going to see him kind of take his time, go through his visits, enjoy being a recruit one last time, because this is the last opportunity he will have most likely to have that red carpet rolled out for him. And it is very telling that whenever he did decommit, he put out a tweet right after that says, no, this recruitment is not open. I might not have a verbal pledge by my name anymore, but no. You coaches that haven't talked to me in months, this is not the time for you to come back in. I know what I'm down to. I know the schools that I want to go check out, and more than likely, I know where I want to end up right now. And if I was a betting man, which I am, who am I to lie? Texas looks really good in the race for Dakarian Moore. I think you'll see a decision before the beginning of his senior season, but probably after the official visit. So I'm looking at that month of July as a time that you'll see Dakarian Moore make an announcement.
Okay, well, we'll follow that, and obviously, I know the Oregon kids are coming after him, and at least as far as pushing for it, and it seems like it's those 2. CJ, do you see any commits coming or happening before June? Robert Pope with the Super 10.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for the super chat. Hey, we still have that outstanding high from Jerry. You know, it's still out there, and I do think that we'll hear about it before that month of June comes rolling around. Of course, that's start of that momentum that we've been talking about. Whenever the summer months get hot, of course, Jackson Christian just joined the class about a week or two ago. Texas could certainly look to add more to this class before that month of June comes in, and of course, when June comes rolling around, that pedal is to the metal. And as they say, you know, no gas, no break, or all gas, no brakes over at the Moncrief facility. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, good stuff right there, Jerry, and obviously CJ always with the recruiting updates, where it stands, where it's coming, and Sark now in a place where in the staff where it's about 25 and 26 here this summer, where they've got an established roster and they're trying to make a run here in 2024. Hey guys, we'll get to the Bill Connelly S&P Plus conversation coming up because those ratings are out as of today, and it's, you know, I know a lot of you folks out there on the On Texas Football channel, we all kind of look at Bill Connelly and the numbers and the adjusted numbers, how it works. We'll see where he has Texas ranked. I will say before we get into it, he has him ranked in the top 4, but where in the top 4 we'll get to. Also, he's got the SEC rankings and the Longhorn schedule rank of where, you know, how tough this Texas schedule is, which is interesting. But 2 huge developments I think today in college football, guys, or at least things we have to be following bigger than Texas because they involve Texas.
Yep.
The Big 12 became the first conference to approve the House versus the NCAA settlement, which is a big deal, right? The Texas and Oklahoma abstained because they're not going to be in the Big 12 beyond next month. But this is the House settlement that is probably $2.8 billion. It could be upwards of $20 billion if they lose this case. Big picture, it's back pay, Rod and CJ, as far as there's this and 2 other settlements that they would like to get off the books, essentially. This story has been percolating for the entire, you know, winter into the spring now. And the Big 12 presidents, all of them unanimously voted to approve, because, you know, let me fill people in a little bit. Last week, the lawyers working on this sent a 2-page memo to all school presidents in the Power 4 or the Power 5 of, okay, here's a settlement that the plaintiff side have agreed to, and look it through, and we need to have a vote here. And it's, you know, there's a lot to it. You know, they obviously they don't want to leave it open to losing a case is essentially what a settlement. We all know when you're in a class action lawsuit, you know, what's better, either settling, finding an agreement with the plaintiff's side, or risk losing, which then you don't know, right? It's a whole new ball game. But Division I board of directors in the Big 12, the presidents all voted in favor of the proposed $2.77 billion settlement, House versus the NCAA. In the next 2 days, presidents of the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC are also expected to vote on this, and the ACC. You know, this is obviously a way to settle this case, put some parameters around what the future looks like, make some obvious, bring some clarity, I think would be the word I would put to it. Some clarity of, okay, here's what this is going to cost us. Here's what the next 10, 15, 20 years are going to look like cost-wise. There is within the settlement, according to all the reporting, Rod, there is the idea that, there'll be money set aside, probably $20 million, $22 million a school, to actually include student athletes into, for pay.
Revenue sharing.
They will not be labeled employees. They will not be employees, right? So it gets outside of that. The plaintiffs are willing to agree to that to get to this answer. And it's clarity for the athletic departments. Okay, what's this going to cost us? How do we pay it off? How do we agree to this thing so we don't end up, it's $2.77 billion. But if we lose this case and the other 2 cases, it could be $25 billion in losses that we're facing, which could bankrupt the whole system. So that has happened. So all the Big 12 presidents, all 12 of the standing schools, this does not include Texas or Oklahoma or the 4 corner schools that are coming in, but I'm assuming they're on board with this. So I think we're in a fast track to that. And we also know that the NCAA and college football is lobbying the U.S. Congress to be ready to help them if they get a settlement in this case, in these 3 cases, the House being the biggest, that then there could be some laws put in place that could give them antitrust exemptions, that could prevent future lawsuits, that could give them some cover to actually build some structure into the future. I think that's important too. And then we have this story out of Florida, Rod, which I know this is a lot. I mean, all this is happening in real time.
Still related.
They're all interrelated.
Yeah.
And now we have Jaden Rashada suing Florida and Billy Napier in a lawsuit with Rusty Harden as the lead attorney, claiming that he got screwed out of $13.85 million in an NIL deal. This is where we are in college football. I've heard you say it many times, Rod, the golden age for athletes, right? There's a golden age going on right now for student athletes.
Yes, it is.
But obviously the powers that be are trying to close that down as much as possible while getting some clarity for themselves. Same time, Jaden Rashada suing Florida. This is all happening real fast, real time, and everyone should be paying attention to it because it impacts anybody that plays college athletics.
Anybody that plays it, anybody that watches college athletics, or anybody that used to play college athletics, Rob B might have a check coming. Who knows? I'm paying close attention, too. But you're right about this. So the reason the antitrust thing, you just hit the nail on the head. Basically, they got to settle this thing because if they lose in court, by the way, which we all know, the courts don't like the NCAA.
No.
The highest court in the land, they believe the NCAA is basically been operating as and violating antitrust laws for decades. So they know they're going to lose in court pretty much. And by the way, the antitrust lawsuits are going to keep on coming. That's the lobbying on Capitol Hill you're talking about there, E. So they know they're going to lose. They got to settle the lawsuits. And Charlie Baker, who's the new NCAA president. This guy's important now because they should have hired him about 10 years ago. He's very progressive. He's actually the one that has presented the revenue sharing deal. He was in January. He was like, hey, we gotta break the players off some of this stuff, man. Revenue sharing. He was talking about that in January of 2024. The guy just got the job. They'd have hired somebody like him 10 years ago. They probably wouldn't be in a situation they're in now because at least they'd have been more progressive. They kind of would have been more proactive instead of reactive. So they're going to lose in court, so they got to settle. Settlement there will be a revenue sharing deal as a part of that. We just don't know exactly how it's going to look. And then, yes, the NCAA and the conferences have spent as much as $15 million in the last 5 years lobbying on Capitol Hill. And I'm talking about getting the heavy hitters on Capitol Hill. I'm talking about getting the people that get presidents elected, the people that are helping Big Pharma fight the opioid crisis and trying to get their way with Capitol Hill. We're talking about by the top 3 to 5 biggest lobbying firms on Capitol Hill have been hired by the NCAA and the power conferences to try to help them. It's 3 things they want, as he mentioned. I got them here because I went and made sure because there was an interesting article about it the other day from Front Office Sports. So here's the 3 things that they want. Antitrust exemption. So going forward, nobody can sue them for anything, pretty much. Basically, so we give them free reign dictating their own compensation rules. That's why they know they're going to keep losing these antitrust lawsuits because literally they're a borderline criminal syndicate. The NCAA is. So they've been and unless they change the model, which they're trying to do, modernize it, they'll continue to violate antitrust laws. That's why they're trying to change the model. So pay off the settlement, then modernize the model, whatever you think amateurism is, so it's not violating antitrust laws so flagrantly. And then get Capitol Hill to help you and say, all right, get Uncle Sam to say, listen, nobody can sue the NCAA again for violating antitrust laws. Done. It's all over. Done. They want that. I don't think they should get it because I don't trust the NCAA with that kind of power. Also, they want a law specifying that college athletes don't count as employees. They want Uncle Sam to clarify that they will never, ever be counted as employees. So they don't have to worry about unionization at the college level. And then 3, they want the ability to preempt conflicting state laws. Basically, they want uniformity of NIL law, a federal legislation. Uncle Sam saying this is the NIL law that everybody will follow. To hell with NCAA rules. To hell with your state law. This is the law you follow. They want that. And except they're not going to get it this year, because we got a presidential election happening and we got bigger fish to fry. So it's not going to happen this year. It'll happen with a new president or whatever after the election. I don't want to get into that. All right, after the election, that's when it'll happen. But by the way, the NCAA and the power conference have been lobbying to keep amateurism, or at least some form of it, and so it's not totally destroyed, for like 5 years. So think about this, guys. On Capitol Hill, all the politicians, they're not hearing the player side. There is no lobbying group on behalf of the players.
No.
Unless there's a politician out there that's really passionate about players' rights, there's nobody on Capitol Hill now telling them what their version of amateurism is and what's wrong with NIL or what's wrong with the transfer portal. The only voice they're hearing on Capitol Hill right now are the lobbyists from the NCAA and the lobbyists from the power conferences. So don't be surprised if Capitol Hill comes out to support this. Because there's no lobbying group on part of the players. There needs to be somebody needs to tell them to go, all right, guys, we need to get on Capitol Hill and talk to them about the inequality in this model right now with the NCAA.
Well, and that's always been the rub, Rod. You know this, right? There's a rotating job force in college athletics. They come and they go, right? And there isn't a voice, and you're right about that. I mean, $15-20 million in lobbying, and that's only going to progress to get the three things you mentioned. And look, if you can't win in court, and if what has been proven is not just or lawful, then you have to go and lobby the people to change the laws. I mean, that's really what you have to do. You got to go talk to the power brokers who will then change the laws in your favor, and especially if the other side doesn't have a voice. But I will say this, and Rod, you know this, and CJ, and I've been lobbying for this for players and an advocate on the player side for 3 decades now. I believe in it firmly. But what I'm reading might actually save college athletics and put it in a pretty good place. I mean, as much as I don't want the U.S. government involved, the NCAA is so mismanaged. College athletics is so fractured and selfish that what they're asking for may actually put it in a place where the players will roll in. They'll be able to make money through the universities in this settlement. They'll have a payment, but they'll also be able to make name, image, and likeness. And, because I've always argued for the players who are not going pro in their sport, they're going to make some money while they're there while they're making money for the university, the 90% of them or whatever they are. Mm-hmm. And, again, it's not perfect. It'll never be. But the other side of that is if it went to they're all employees, that's also equally destructive.
Yep.
That's not sustainable. It's really not. When, we've seen the Longhorns in their athletic department achieve the highest success this year in the Big 12. They've got, 15 conference championships now across 21 sports they compete in. They've got 10 players of the year. I mean, they couldn't be competing at a higher level, but there are 500 plus student athletes and they can't all be employees. I mean, there's just no way to sustain that if you translate that across all of college athletics. So this may actually be, the lobbying part of it is kind of gross, but that's what you do when you want to get laws changed in your favor. But it may actually create a situation, and I want you guys' thoughts on this, where, okay, we settle this lawsuit that's a $3 billion class action lawsuit. So it's going to change the model. Trev Alberts was just hired down at Texas A&M to be the new athletic director. And he came in and said, look, y'all, I got to find $20-25 million to start paying student athletes. I've got to, I'm walking in knowing this was 3 months ago where he's like, and he's already laid off or let go of a lot of seasoned people in the athletic department, saying we've got to create revenue because this is coming. I got to find $20-25 million that's going to be distributed to student athletes. So that's just the way that's going to work. But NIL, because once you get this agreement, this settlement, CJ and Rod, in place, and then you get the help from the U.S. government to put some parameters around it that shield you from future lawsuits, then all of a sudden you can actually put some ground rules in place. You can actually play on there's never going to be a level playing field, but as close as we can get and still keep the college athletics that we love, not just football and basketball, but all the sports. You want to keep that as competitive as possible across the board. I think it may, Rod, you and I have talked about this for a long time. It may take, as much as we don't like it, the U.S. government and the federal government to actually put structure in place the NCAA never could, that could actually make this thing feasible for the long term.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I want CJ's thoughts about it, because I think fundamentally you're right. I don't know if I like the process in which it's happening, but the player, you can't go to the extreme of making them employees, because that kills that business model, would essentially destroy most of major college sports. Yep. It would. It's just most universities programs just can't afford it. But we all agree, kind of going back to which is what the NCAA wants to do. They want to go retro and kind of want to go back before NIL and transfer portal ultimately, and we can't do that either. So I think the great compromise might be where they're going with revenue sharing and NIL. NIL is going to save universities, guys, because that's going to fill the gaps between whatever they're usually getting in terms of budgets and revenues with their athletic department, and now what they need to generate to pay the players or to pay the athletes. The NIL, whether it be the directives or the collectives, they're going to come in and be able to really save the universities, because unless they're just firing a lot of folks and even cutting some programs, period, it's going to be tough for a lot of universities to be able to afford this. And then we got Title IX that also needs to be discussed in this juncture to talk about how the equity between women and men's sports as well when it comes to this money and dividing up the revenue.
Yeah, the thing for me is there needs to be some sort of uniformity across how they sanction the NIL side of things. We've heard of all about these crazy numbers. We just talked about Rashada and Florida a little bit, about promised NIL deals that don't always fall through. And I think, to me, it's just it's misleading on the side of the school, and it's a little bit naive on the side of the player to think that that's all going to be guaranteed, right? And so for me, there needs to be that same, kind of blanket coverage of what's the case. Rod, we talked about it. Virginia, the schools in Virginia just passed that bill where, essentially you are an employee of the school, or you can be paid via the school. That's 100% a leg up, right? That is 100% something that they can benefit from that nobody else in the entire country can, because of where and how their state laws are regulated. So to me, in the sense that if this is going to be the part in the future of college athletics where you can be making money, where you can be making profits off of your name, image, and likeness. Oh, and now all of a sudden the NCAA is going to be looking at college athletics, perhaps as a hand-in-hand employee, quote unquote. It has to be similar, because I think it does become a slippery slope of schools are always going to find a way to cut corners. So this has been, kind of the staple of college football dating back to about the 80s, or even before then, back into the 70s. Guys will always find ways to get that a little bit of an advantage in a recruitment to make their school more attractive. I think in the way that this is kind of playing out at the moment, there has to be some sort of set of uniform laws that are separated and going out to everybody at the moment. And I just don't think that's going to be, I don't think it's going to be possible at the moment.
Well, unless the federal government gets involved, and there's not another entity that can, right? Because the conferences are never going to agree. There's never going to be a uniform, we agree on this, but they're always going to be in for themselves, which is what their job is, right? If you're the commissioner of the SEC, your job is to be the commissioner of the SEC and not the Big Ten, or, what's good for everybody. And unfortunately, I think our U.S. government they absolutely have bigger issues to be dealing with. But in this case, the lobbying efforts are going to push it to where, and Rod, to where it should have been, 15 years ago. They should have been moving towards this model years and years and years ago, to where, because I don't think the players literally are asking for a lot. They're asking for a fair cut. And there's a number out there, I think it was Jay Billis that tweeted that, 40% at the Power Five, 40% of athletic budget costs go to coaches' salaries and coaches' buyouts. Okay. This is going to force college athletic departments to get their blank in order at some level. You can't, there's just not this free money that you can, it's like the Fed or something. You can't just print money and buy out coaches. And at some point you got to live within a budget. And yes, you got to cut the players in on it just a little bit. No one's asking for a ton, and they're there 3, 4, 5 years and they're gone. So it's not a huge deal. It's really cutting them in on the conversation, paying them for what they're worth while they're there, finding a way that it's functional, and you're not bleeding money in court all the time and losing these court cases. There is a happy medium. And yes, as you said, Rod, and I think you said, CJ, there's no ideal solution to this point. You're looking for the worst option right now, because right now what's happened is as I always say, the dam has been filling up and the water was overflowing, and they just tore the dam down, and now it's just flowing free. At some point, there's got to be somebody come in and put some type of structure in place that can allow this thing to sustain. And it might be the U.S. government, it might be the federal government, and unfortunately, or fortunately, that may be the only solution here at this point to where it goes. But we'll see. This, for our audience here on Texas Football, I know this is kind of off topic for what we normally do on a Tuesday night, but it really is.
It affects Texas. Texas
in real time. It's happening in real time. The Big 12 today voted. All the 12 school presidents voted in favor. The other power conferences are expected to vote this week. And there's not a lot of pushback on it. The pushback's coming from the smaller conferences that are being asked to pay for a lot of this, which I don't think is their fault, which is a bit different conversation. But that's happening in real time this week. By the time we talk next Tuesday, right after Memorial Day, there could be a settlement that is agreed to for almost $3 billion, and it would completely change the definition and the structure of college athletics. So in real time, that's happening. Meanwhile, guys, the Jaden Rashada story,
crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, when I see Rusty Harden is involved in this, let me just say this for our audience. Jaden Rashada, and CJ, you know this very well, right? He was a kid from California. He is a kid from California who went to IMG for a little bit, went back to California, got committed to play at Miami for what he says was like $9 million in an NIL deal over the course of his time there, and then got outbid by Florida essentially and ended up going to Florida. But then before even the spring game, he bailed out of Florida and he ended up at Arizona State. And now he's at Georgia. He's playing, back up or third string at Georgia. So just so you know, the last 3-4 years, this guy's been all over the place. So he's kind of all over the place. But he claims in a lawsuit that was filed today in a Pensacola courtroom, Rusty Harden of Deshaun Watson, Roger Clemens, Ken Paxton impeachment case, go on down the list fame. He's got a high-powered attorney claiming that Florida owes him $13.85 million. This thing is, as we talk about the protection that the NCAA wants and schools want from future lawsuits, this one's happening in real time. This one's a doozy, y'all.
And this kind of goes back to the point that I wanted to make about having uniformity across not only the universities, but at the same time, these NIL agents, quote unquote. It is a disaster to truly get an idea of who represents who, or who's going to be the guy to walk into the bargaining table on the side of high school athletes, or even when you're into college. Guys can switch representatives. Obviously, that happens at the pros, happens coaches, whatever. Big pop stars, their agents switch all the time, but there's no set of rules into. I mean, if I wanted to, the big athlete down the street, I could walk down into an office at any point with the collective agency and say, yeah, if you want to listen to him, you got to go through me. If you want to have an opportunity for this kid to come play for your university, I mean, that's coming through me to him. And you can't talk to him legally yet, but I sure can. Oh, but Rod, you could do the same thing. It's a disaster on that front. And again, whenever, these big deals are kind of drawn up, I'm sure, at the time of the agreement, it was all, fair and in good faith by both parties. But at the same time, you never know who's getting a real chunk of change out of this deal. High school coaches, they get a chunk out of some of these guys. We've seen it all the way throughout, the basketball situations and those scandals with Adidas and Nike back in the day as well. There were assistant coaches on college staffs giving money and giving aid and giving basically impermissible benefits to the best high school basketball players in the country to get them to come to a Nike school, because that's where the next big deal was going to come from. So if you're going to look at the schools in the sense of, okay, there needs to be some sort of regulations or guidelines set in place, I also have to look at the high school ranks or the free agency portal and say, if you are going to come to the table as, the representation for a future 4- or 5-star kid, you have to have, some sort of certification, or at least have some sort of merit to your name and not just be some Joe Schmo uncle looking to pay his bills off the street. I think that's part of the bigger issue here, rather than what we've been talking about. Of course, everybody's going to go for, I don't want to say everybody, but if someone's offering 9.5, 13 million, whatever it's being reported as, who's to say no, right? I'll move across the country if that's the deal being offered for me over the next 4 years. That's for sure. But at the same time, I have to have an idea of what I need to fulfill, where that money is coming from, and what I need to do to get that money coming in, or who has that best interest in for me if it's coming from someone that negotiated on my side. So that's my 2 cents there. It's got to be guidelines on both sides, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, and this Jaden Rashada thing, Rod, and CJ, it's a great point, because again, we've seen it in college basketball, and it's kind of the shoe wars, and it got really ugly, and now college football is heading that same direction. But this one was there ever a contract in place, Rod? To me, if Rusty Harden's involved, he doesn't get involved in loser cases typically. Then he's got to feel like there's a good chance here. And the biggest issue, well, maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest is that Billy Napier is named in the lawsuit.
Yep.
It's not just the collective that is involved in Gainesville there, the Gator Chomp or whatever it's called, collective. The people that run that collective are named in the lawsuit, but Billy Napier is specifically named in the lawsuit, meaning, and it says really unequivocally that one of our agreement to come to Florida would not have happened without the other. Everyone knew what was happening. Billy Napier was recruiting me. The collective agreed to the number. Billy Napier helped facilitate that. And, we never saw a payment, essentially, was the deal, which, again, this guy seems to me like he's all over the place. He's vagabond. He's bouncing to the biggest paycheck. Same time, if there was a deal in place and he never got any money and Billy Napier, the head coach, is involved, which we all know, as silly as this whole thing is, coaches cannot be directly connected to these conversations. Billy Napier could be in big trouble here, whether he can win the lawsuit or not.
Yeah, and it's crazy because essentially, lawsuit aside, right? Let's just say we're talking about NCAA rules here. Remember, the inducement rule in the NIL NCAA rule is actually currently right now being protested, if you will. There's an injunction, a federal injunction that has to do with those lawsuits out there in Virginia that you can use inducement to recruit a player. Inducement, for those who don't know, is basically when you can negotiate prices. You can negotiate straight up prices, straight up money, dollar figures when you're recruiting a player. The inducement rule by the NCAA was supposed to forbid that. It was supposed to basically state that athletes, I should say, can only take advantage of NIL opportunities and deals once they are a student athlete on campus. So once they have signed their national letter of intent and they are a student athlete on campus, then they can take advantage of these deals. This is something that's done obviously before he was a student athlete on campus. So they're throwing out the inducement stuff. And I don't know if that would retroactively, obviously hurt him, or if the NCAA even cares. Remember, the NCAA has stopped enforcing a lot of their rules, guys, because they keep losing in court. Because their rules essentially they violate a lot of antitrust laws or violate state laws with NIL, I guess in this case. I will say this though, if there's a contract in place, and a lot of the reports are there is a contract somewhere, and I don't know how official this contract is, but there's a contract and it was signed, and it said that he was supposed to have a signing bonus. It said there was supposed to be a bonus, like a $500,000 to $1 million signing bonus when he signed the contract. And I believe they believe the deal fell apart. Essentially, everybody reneged on the deal, or at least Florida did, after they did not send him that payment, whatever it may have been. So I actually have no idea how it's going to turn out lawsuit-wise. But you're right. If there's a contract, Rusty Hardin usually don't take loser cases. Something tells me there's a contract that was signed, and if I believe it's Hugh, the booster that is in question here, who is also being named in a lawsuit, is Hugh Hathcock. He's the Florida booster. And then it's also Marcus Castro Walker. He is the director of NIL and player engagement for the University of Florida, as well as Billy Napier, as you mentioned. But yeah, if those guys actually are signing that contract too, and that's what it is, or they're represented on that contract, then I don't see how they're not held accountable, at least. Because they would have promised him that money if he committed to them and signed that contract. And if he signed that contract, they would have been the ones who reneged on the deal. And if they reneged on the deal, that means that they're liable because he, I believe, flipped his commitment and was left without a school to commit to and without an NIL deal because of that. So I don't know where it's going to end up, man. It's a very gray area right now for all involved, I think. We've never been here before. This is unprecedented.
Yeah, we talked about whether or not Billy Napier will make the Texas game. Well, that Georgia game is November 2nd. So the largest cocktail party in the country is what they call that Florida-Georgia game over in Jacksonville on the annual game. I don't know if Billy Napier will will be making that game in person, which is unfortunate because, the headlines, the storylines, whatever would have gone into that game because of this story would have been tremendous, especially if, and I'm not wishing, for injury or whatever, if Rashada did play in that game and did have a good game, they would have made for quite a storybook, kind of crazy, ending to all of this.
Yeah. You're right. He's at Georgia now, and it's a great from Miami to Arizona State, or Miami to Florida to Arizona State to Georgia. But yes, I mean, and Rod, you said it right. If there's a contract and it's provable and signed, the fact that they named Billy Napier would indicate that they probably don't want $14 million. They'd probably settle for a $2.5 million check and get out of here, get a settlement out of this deal because the kid hadn't gotten anything, and his NIL bargaining power is not where it was 2 years ago. But it's a crazy story, and yes, it impacts college football. Billy Napier, will he be the coach at Florida when they play Texas here this year? Their schedule's brutal. That's in early November, and you mentioned the Georgia game. All right, guys, good time to pivot to the and good conversation. We'll take your questions, thoughts on all of that here. Brought to you by Texas Electricity Ratings here on the On Texas Football live stream on the On Texas Football channel on a Tuesday night. I mentioned Bill Connelly's S&P Plus, curated by Bill Connelly. It's a it's the number crunching, which you love, Rod, so much. It's a tempo and an opponent adjusted measure of college football efficiency, right? Looking through all the numbers, who are the best teams in college football as we sit here through the talent acquisition period. Most rosters, kind of like the NFL, through free agency and the draft and trades, are full. Everybody kind of knows what they've got. And right now, according to Bill Connelly, the SP Plus, which was released today, Longhorns are ranked as the number 4 team in the country nationally, behind Oregon at 3, Ohio State 2, Georgia number 1. Feel pretty good about that. I mean, I think we all thought Texas would be in the top 4, but Georgia with Carson Beck returning, and obviously what they've proven over the last 5-6 years with Kirby Smart. Ohio State has loaded up in the portal. Will Howard, Devin Brown will compete for the starting quarterback job. Quinshawn Judkins, the Ole Miss transfer, is now there. They added, the tremendous Alabama safety.
Caleb Downs, yep.
Yeah, Caden Downs to the back end. I mean, they've really opened up the checkbook there at Ohio State. Oregon has added Dylan Gabriel and a bunch of other guys to what they're doing. Texas, we know what they've done. Any thoughts with the top 4 there, guys? I think that's going to be the consensus top 4 in every poll. Just depends on how you see them.
Yeah, definitely. Oregon made some really nice late spring additions to their roster. I know they added a few defensive linemen. Similarly to the position Texas was in, needing that depth, needing those bodies in that room. Of course, moving to the Big Ten, they're kind of in that same kind of culture shock Texas is going to be walking into in terms of style of play on a week to week versus the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. They're going to be having to face those Michigans, the Michigan States, those big Penn State's running teams first versus what we saw, over the last couple of years in the Pac-12. I have no problem with Texas at 4. I think Oregon and Texas probably a toss-up at the moment. I think both have great rosters, obviously veteran quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel will probably be entering his 30th year of college by the time my child is born. But Ohio State, to me, in my eyes, I think Ohio State has the most talented roster. Does that mean they're the best football team? Maybe not. Quarterback probably makes the difference there. Carson Beck to Will Howard probably makes a difference. But I think Ohio State defensively absolutely has the best roster of any team in the country. Texas, where things sit right now outside the top 10, I have no issue with it. Again, when you lose a first-round defensive tackle, and the guy that was the best defensive tackle in the country a year ago, and then a starting linebacker and cornerback, things get a little bit hairy. Always tough to kind of seemingly replace that without any hiccups, right? That's a lot walking out the door. I have no issue with that. What's interesting to me is how, that's LSU at 9. That's a really high offensive S&P Plus. That's exactly what we thought of LSU a year ago. Jaden Daniels, of course, the 2 really talented first-round wide receivers. But that defense couldn't stop a cold. Of course, that was a really, really bad defense. And, Harold Perkins is the guy that gets all the love over there. Will they figure out a way to utilize him and make him more impactful? We'll have to wait and see. But I think right now, top 35 defense right now in this rankings, I mean, there's your hamstring if you're LSU again.
Yeah. And Rod, I want your thoughts, but do you just look at the glance? I mean, Texas plays number 6, 4 plays 6, 3 plays 2. Oregon and Ohio State will play at Oregon on October 12th as a Big Ten game, and of course Texas plays Georgia on October 19th, I believe, is the date of that game. And of course Georgia plays Alabama I mean, you look at that top 6; they're all going to play one another, or top 7, top 8; they're all going to play each other. It's going to be a heck of a first 2.5 months of the college football season, the regular season, and of course now there's a 12-team playoff beyond that.
Yeah, I'm happy you got a little margin for error now, right? If you're any of those teams, because at least now you can lose a game here or there. It's still, as long as you're the top 12, one of the top 12 teams in the country, you still got a shot at that 12-team playoff. But yeah, I think I see Texas being able to control their own fate, in so many ways, because I think that ultimately Georgia will be ranked number 1 when Texas plays them. I think that's now, unless Ohio State's ranked number 1 ahead of them. I don't know exactly how the polls are going to work out, but I think Georgia will probably be the best team in the country when they come to play Texas. That'll be a big game for Quinn, because they'll probably have the top 2 rated quarterbacks in that matchup coming out in this draft class with Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. And to me, that's kind of be the great separator, right? Quarterback, head coach, coordinator, consistency. Ohio State, you're right, they went all in this year, but Georgia's bringing back a quarterback. They're bringing back a lot of their lines of scrimmage on the offensive line. So is Texas. I think that's going to be important when you start looking at these teams, how they're going to separate down the stretch. Alabama might be one of those teams. I think they're a team that's a little higher up rated than I thought, considering some of the losses from Alabama. But I think that's respect for Kalen DeBoer and what he's brought in via the transfer portal. And it shows you, even if you have an exodus of talent these days, that's not an excuse for having holes in your roster if you're a big-time football program. Sark knows that now. Just because you had 3 receivers drafted, that's not an excuse for you to have an underwhelming receiving corps. That's why he went out and got 3 via the transfer portal. Same thing with Texas in the defensive tackle position. So you can see Alabama there. They just really kind of, reloaded with that Kellen DeBoer group. Different type of team, obviously, under Kellen DeBoer, but I think that's giving respect to what he's done. Michigan, when Texas plays them, early on the season, they'll probably end up being close to like a top 5, definitely a top 10 team. Shows that Michigan, even though they lost a ton, when they have 13 guys drafted, something like that, still, Jim Harbaugh was building that thing for a few years, and he's been stockpiling some really talented classes. And they're gonna be trying to play Harbaugh brand of football with unproven commodities on offense, but defensively, that might be the best damn defense in college football. It's possible. Yeah. Like, that's how good they are. And Texas will be tested there. So I just like that Texas. They're 2 big tests. They'll face, I think, potentially the number 1 team in the country, and I think they potentially could face the number 1 defense in the country in Michigan this year. I'm excited about that.
What's interesting here is, of course, there's 5 SEC schools. So I'll take Texas out of that, but Texas only plays one of them, right? We talk about how favorable, quote unquote, that schedule is in year 1 of the SEC. You don't have to play LSU. You don't have to play Ole Miss. You don't have to play Alabama. That's not too bad if you're looking at from the SEC's perspective for Texas walking into year 1.
Yep.
Yeah, and you play the bottom 4 or 5 schools in the conference as far as the predictions would go. It really stands out, and I really like Bill Connelly. I think a lot of us look at this each week as he adjusts it as the games go on. But Georgia and Alabama, just by glance, and thank you to Matthew for putting this up. This gives you the offensive SP plus, defensive, and special teams. The only 2 teams that are in the top 5 or top 10 in all 3 categories are Alabama and Georgia, which speaks to the completeness of their rosters. Texas, if I'm looking at this and I'm Sark, I'm like, okay, well, we got to get our defense and our special teams into the top 10. And then we're talking about, playing for a national championship potentially. And then I look at Michigan, Rod, and you mentioned it, that matchup of the Texas offense, which is SP plus 4, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. I look at Oregon. I wonder if Dylan Gabriel's going to be a good fit there. We'll see. He's always been a Jeff Lebby kind of guy. I don't know how that's going to fit with him and what they're doing at Oregon for replacing Bo Nix. And we'll see in Ohio State. We know they're with Will Howard or Devin Brown. But that matchup with Texas and that offense against that Michigan defense, oh man, 3rd in the SP plus. You can't wait for September 7th because that's going to be one hell of a ball game. Texas has the definitive advantage, I think, defense to the Michigan offense. And special teams will be kind of work itself out. That's going to be a hell of a ball game.
Real good test for that O-line for Texas, man. They probably got the best, they do, best D-tackle duo in all of college football. They flipped the script on you from last year. It was Texas that had the best D-tackle duo. Now Michigan got it. May have the best D-tackle room in the country. So for that Texas O-line, it's going to be a test early for them. If they can hold up against that Michigan interior D-line, I feel good about what they can do in the SEC. So you'll know if they're SEC ready when they play up against Michigan. And if Texas can run the football against that Michigan squad, stay away from throwing at Will Johnson. I think, it's going to be a real barometer for that team to kind of see where they are.
Well, and Rod, to that point, I mean, the offensive line, that's strength on strength, right? 100% strength on strength. And it's also, this is Sark, against Wink Martindale. Yeah. Yep. And this is, he's going to be blitz happy for Michigan. It's also Quinn and these receivers against that great secondary. I mean, they got 2 first-round draft picks out there at Michigan. I mean, they're going to get pressure. This is everything you want in an early game. I mean, this teaches you a lot about your football team. I got to think Sark and the staff and Quinn are looking at this game as, okay, we'll find out a lot about ourselves and what we can be here. And, the receivers, I mean, these are the games that NFL scouts go and watch and see how do you compete? How do you match up in this game? How does Sark attack this against Wink Martindale, who will have the element of surprise, I would guess, in this a little bit as far as the uncertainty. Same time, you can't wait. I mean, that's a really good football game. September the 7th in Ann Arbor.
I wonder because, last year they faced Alabama, right? You faced Kool-Aid McKinstry, Terry and Arnold.
Yeah.
Those guys end up getting drafted this past year. Really good players in college and expect to be good players who were drafted high in the NFL. And
Dallas Turner.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the NFL's looking at. Like, all right, you know what? It makes my job easier. I ain't got to go scout these guys in separate locations, different games. I'm watching all these guys that are on my list right here in this one game. So if you're a Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, and Silas Bowden, Jonte Cook, NFL scouts, you get that rep against Will Johnson. Oh man, that's what they want, CJ. That's all the NFL scouts gonna put their notebooks up and be like, all right, let me check this out.
If you're DJ Campbell, bring your big boy boots because you mentioned the 2 best interior defensive linemen in the entire country. I mean, DJ Campbell, a guy who's looking to go to the NFL draft after this year. He will be eligible. He will have about 25, 28 games under his belt as a starter at Texas. If he's able to pick up the blitzes and keep his vision up, that will be basically a check off the box of what he had needed to improve on going into year 3, year 2 as a starter, year 3 as a college athlete. We saw him get tripped up a little bit early in 2023 when it comes to stunts, twists, blitzes from the outside. I thought he looked pretty good in those, few series that we saw early from him in the spring game. But that Michigan game, you mentioned Wink Martindale and how much he wants to bring pressure. With those 2 guys up front, he's going to have his hands full all night.
Yep.
I love that. I think that's both of y'all. That's really good points. I'm like jonesing for this game now because it's I can even hear Sark and the staff and these players. I mean, this is what you want, right? You want these opportunities. Rod, if you can, as a competitor as you are, if you can go in and bully ball Michigan and you can move people, in that game, we know what they did last year, and a lot of those guys are back on defense. I mean, you make a name for yourself. You become the bully on the block at that point. You put yourself in that conversation. Okay, Texas is not only are they back, they're now the bully that's pushing around Michigan.
Yeah, and if you can push around Michigan, I know the SEC is a line of scrimmage league. It is, but y'all know Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh plays a certain brand of football.
Yep.
He gonna go to the Chargers and build them the same way he's built every Harbaugh football team with the line of scrimmage, and they want to play bully ball. They want to punk you. They want to Debo you, and Michigan's gonna try to play the same way. That's just Harbaugh ain't there, but they're gonna be playing Harbaugh football. And if you can go up to Michigan on the road in the big house, all right. That football team, the way it's built, not proving commodities because a lot of them left, but trust me, they got a lot of really good players, and you're able to punk that team and Debo that team, kind of like you did to Alabama when you went to Tuscaloosa last season. If you can do that, trust me, the confidence that's going to grow with this team after that is going to be immense. It's going to be tremendous. And I talked to the players. They said after the Alabama game, that's when they all knew. That's when it was confirmed. You have confidence as a player. You always believe in yourself, but it ain't always confirmed that you are potentially the big dog. All right, that you are the hunter and no longer the hunted. Right, and that they confirmed it then, and all the players said that was it. When they beat Alabama, they were right because Alabama ended up in the college football playoff. They believe they can beat anybody in the country. And I think that Michigan game and the Georgia game will be similar tests for them, and they're looking forward to that. That test of confirmation that everything that they've done, all the work they put in and everything they're capable of, right, is actually, championship caliber play against the best teams in the country.
I like it. Well, and if I'm Stark and I'm Kyle Flood, we're not going in there to trick them guys. We're going to go in there and punch them in the mouth. So we're going in and I'll have a game plan, but it's going to be Texas football. And we're going to take that to Michigan and eat on and chew on that all summer long.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not getting cute. We're going in there and we're smashing people. All right. As far as the SP Plus, as far as the SEC goes, top to bottom, Georgia's number 1 in the SP Plus. Real quick, guys, to wrap up our Tuesday live stream. Texas is 4 overall, as we mentioned. Alabama's 5, Ole Miss 8, LSU 9, Missouri 11, Texas A&M is 13. That's interesting to me.
That's good.
A&M 13. I mean, they're kind of a wild card team in this conference with Mike Elko. They had a ton of guys through the portal, over 20 players through the portal. Because, I think, guys, real quick on A&M, it hadn't been about talent at A&M. You talk to anybody that's been around that program, it's been about lack of leadership, Jimbo, ego, all the things. I mean, they got good players down there. If Mike Elko comes in, calms things down, they've got some good players. I mean, they still have a rough offensive line, I think, which will cost them some games. But, I mean, their defense should be really good. I mean, their quarterback room's pretty good. I mean, that A&M team's pretty salty as far as overall roster goes.
That's the biggest thing for A&M is keeping Connor Wakeman healthy, keeping him upright. I know that their backup quarterback actually flashed a little bit in that bowl game. Take of it what you want. But Wakeman's the real deal. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. If you're able to protect for him, you've got enough weapons to make a formidable offense where things are, comprehensible. You no longer have those 30-word John Gruden play calls coming in from Jimbo Fisher. You can sit there and kind of sit back and relax when you hear the play call. If you're a wide receiver, a running back, a tight end, and that play in that offense now with Colin Klein. Of course, I don't think it's anything special. I don't think it's anything that's groundbreaking or world-breaking whenever Texas will have to face them later in the year. But, of course, their biggest concern or their biggest weakness will be that offensive line, kind of the offset of what Texas is dealing with right now. They're going to have a good defensive line. They won't have a good offensive line right now.
Yeah. And the right side of that line is particularly troubling. And that's a thing for Mike Elko, Rob, that you don't just fix that. And even Oklahoma, who's ranked 15 in the SP Plus.
Yep.
I mean, they're going into the SEC with no returning offensive lineman. Tyler Guyton is drafted by the Cowboys. They had a big transfer that moved out. They got a brand new quarterback and brand new offensive line. And despite the addition of Dominic Williams at D tackle, they're thin on D line. So that's a challenge. They have a tough schedule at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it's one of the toughest positions to replace via the transfer portal is offensive line, because when teams get good offensive linemen, they don't let them go. And the pancake factory. So you're right. That's a tough position to replace for the Aggies. But, I've been looking at some of the lines, the opening lines of some of the college football games for the 2024 season, and the Aggies are favored. I want to say they're favored in like 9 out of the 12 games that I've seen. And the only game really that I've seen they're not favored in is the Texas game. They're favored over Notre Dame, actually.
A&M? Yeah. That's
week one. That's
August 31st. Yeah, that's going to be hot as hell down there in College Station. It's like here.
Vegas and these analytical methods that you're talking about here with Bill Connelly and his SP Plus algorithm and analytic, they like A&M more than the people do, than the eye test. They believe A&M has been stockpiling some talent, and we'll see what Elko does with it. But I'm with you. New offensive coordinator. Can they keep their quarterback upright? Now, lines of scrimmage. That defensive line, though, I hear is going to be pretty good.
I think they brought in a kid from Purdue that could be one of the best pass rushers in the SEC. Yeah, I mean, I think they're pretty good on the D side. And Mike Elko, he's going to try to keep the low scoring and keep the games kind of muck them up a little bit.
Yep.
See if they can find some wins. Oklahoma, obviously, with Brett Venables, kind of the same philosophy, I would imagine. All right, guys, let me tell you about Texas electricity ratings. And I know maybe you're not watching tonight, or if you are, you're on a generator down having power issues in Houston. Appreciate you. We're thinking about you guys. If you are in one of the deregulated areas of Texas, and as we move forward here, and you understand that the deregulated electricity market can be confusing and hard to figure out, Texas Electricity Ratings is a website that's a shopping website that allows you to compare prices and read customer reviews from people who actually are using the electricity. They can tell you exactly what's happening, give you those 3, 4, 5-star reviews. You find a good electricity plan that fits your needs for your family and your home. Also filters out a lot of the gimmicky plans on websites like Power to Choose that end up tricking customers into expensive bills that you don't want to be a part of. So if you're in the market for a new electricity plan, shop TexasElectricityRatings.com. That's TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF for all of your electricity needs, and hook them. They appreciate you checking out the website, finding out all that information. We appreciate them being a part of our Tuesday live stream here on Texas football. And guys, good conversations, a lot happening. And it's one of those slow times as far as the micro level of college football, but it feels like, as we talked about for a good 20, 30 minutes, the macro level of college football, man, there's a lot happening. Keep your head on a swivel with that, because the fundamental, because we know guys on June 30th into July 1st, I know there's a big party planned at UT as they announce, officially move off into the SEC and all those things. SEC Media Days in Dallas are July 15 and whatnot. All that's the micro part, but macro, there's a lot changing as far as new conference affiliations, 12-team playoff, new TV deals, and obviously bigger picture than that. Obviously, there's a settlement maybe coming in the big class action lawsuit. As you said, Rod, probably not in a presidential election year will there be, movement within the U.S. Congress. But man, it is a transformative time in college athletics that we're all following. We're going to follow the micro level for sure. Same time, it bears watching and certainly paying attention to what's happening on the macro level, big picture.
Yeah, you can see why. And now with everything happening as quickly as it is, pretty easy to see why the folks behind the scenes at Texas, Kevin L-Type, Jay Hartzell, CDC, made the move to the SEC as swiftly as they did. Look at where we are, guys. That move was announced, basically 2 years ago? Something like that? Was it less than 2 years ago, somewhere around there? And look at where we are now in the forever changing landscape of college sports already. We're in revenue sharing discussion now already. We're like, we're going to share revenue with the players. We're going to settle it. Would you want to be in the Big 12 now?
No.
Hell no. Let's go to the SEC.
Rod, it's that domino. Longhorn Network ended up changing the world, right? Conference realignment all those years. A&M moves over. Texas follows suit. Everything falls apart from the conferences. And now here we are. What starts here changes the world, huh?
Damn.
Yeah. Well, they had their pulse or finger on the pulse of this whole thing, and it's changing quickly. And Longhorns, I think, are happy to be where they are. The university is happy to be where they are. And you're right. I mean, it's we've shifted, thank goodness. I'm a broken record on this for the players, but we're not talking about if we should pay the players. We're talking about how to play the players, right? And how to actually do it properly and include the players.
Damn
and I say, when I say pay the players, I know that's like a trigger for a lot of people. It's actually include the players in the pile of money that's been amassed.
Exactly.
Like that's all we're trying to argue. Then that's the fair part of it. Yep. How do we include the players? If some coaches' salaries have to come down a little bit, I don't think anybody's gonna be crying a river for that. But at the same time, we're not having those debates about should they receive compensation. It's how they receive compensation.
And I think Jim Harbaugh has he said it before he left to go to the NFL. How soon till we hear coaches say, "Hey, I'll take less money so that my players can get a piece of the pie. They can have some of my money." Because it's Brian Kelly screwed up. No, you want to be buying players now. They want to be bought. They would like you to buy them. They want it. They want you to make it rain. All right, on the players. They want that right now. They want to be objectified.
Yeah. Hey, but by the way, it's become very polar and political. It's like all the folks say, "I'll move if so and so gets elected. I'm moving out of the country." Well, now it's time to prove it. I'll give up some money if I can. I'll take less. Okay, we'll see. Because now it's time. It's time to share the revenue a little bit, guys. Good stuff. Appreciate Matthew. Appreciate everybody. If you are in one of those impacted areas down there in Houston and all through Central Texas and beyond with the storms and whatnot, we're thinking about you. I'm glad you're able to watch tonight. However, you're doing that on generators or whatnot. Just trying to get away from the whole thing, but appreciate it. It's good stuff. The On Texas Football channel rolls on, growing like crazy. Hey, we're on a push for 50,000 subscribers. I can see that. I keep seeing you guys post the number. It's like 46,000 plus. Let's share with a friend. Let's get this thing over 50,000 here pretty quickly into June. CJ and Jerry and everybody have all the latest recruiting information. Summer workouts are going to crank up for what should be a really fun football season. So get that signed up, get yourself subscribed, share with a friend. It is the On Texas Football Channel, the place to be for all Texas football coverage. CJ, Rod, any parting thoughts tonight?
Jerry was with Michael Fasusi tonight. Expect some good or an update earlier tomorrow.
5-star O tackle.
5-star from Louisville. Expect some updates coming on TexasFootball.com. We'll have a video tomorrow as well. Looking forward to it.
All right, and that'll be Coffee and Football tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And Rod be cranking it on the horn tomorrow morning, and looking forward to our next Tuesday. And everybody have a great Memorial Day. Everybody enjoy the 3-day weekend. And let's make sure we honor the fallen, of course. Memorial Day is a 3-day weekend. We all get an extra day. But those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country, that's what this coming weekend is all about. Let's not forget that as we have our barbecues and our pool parties and all those things. It's the ultimate memorial for those who give us the freedoms that we have to do what we do. And that's Talk Texas Football on the On Texas Football Channel. Guys, thanks so much. Thanks to Matthew. Thanks to everybody. Thank you to Texas Electricity Ratings. And we'll do it again next Tuesday.
Welcome.